How can you know who to trust? One politician says one thing, another says the exact opposite. One church says one thing, another says the exact opposite. One parent says one thing, and the other says the exact opposite. I try not to judge motives in people. The Eighth Commandment tells me that I'm not allowed to bear false witness against my neighbor, but Luther takes that and spins it to the positive and says that I'm supposed to explain everything in the kindest way. So, because of that, I choose to believe that every single person, no matter what station they occupy in life, are generally trying to do their best to make things better. The Democrats care deeply about the poor and the underserved. The Republicans care deeply about people who work harder and harder and seem to pay more and more taxes and feel like they're never getting ahead. The Methodists care deeply about social concerns in this world. The Roman Catholics care deeply about the historic church and preserving that. Dad wants Junior to know what he has to know in order to survive in this world, and Mom wants Junior to be a loving and kind person. It's true, people are blind, people are ignorant, people are narrow-minded, but people in positions of power seldom are there with evil intentions. I know we could spend all night making examples of exceptions to the rule, but I choose not to make a rule based on its exceptions. And having said all of that, I still don't know who to trust. If I trust everybody, then I'm left with a bunch of concentric circles in which to run. Never really know anything. And if I trust no one, well, then I'm an island unto myself. And John Donne, the poet, said a long time ago that no man is an island unto himself. So I look to the prophet Jeremiah. The prophet Jeremiah in our Old Testament reading for today, I think he had it just about right. He said in our Old Testament reading, "Cursed is the man who trusts in man." And it's interesting that Jeremiah uses two different Hebrew words that are translated as man. And the first one he uses, cursed is the man, that's the word that means a strong, healthy, virile male. And the second one, the man who trusts in man, is the word from which we get the name Adam. It just means mankind. People. And it seems like what he was insinuating here is that no matter how virile and strong and young and powerful you are, if you put your trust in the descendants of Adam, you're going to be cursed. So, it answers that. Trust no one. Trust no one except Jesus. Because Jeremiah goes on to say, "Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahweh, whose trust is Yahweh." Hear what he said there? Yahweh. That's the proper name of God. In the Bible, when you read your Bible, it usually translates it as the Lord, L-O-R-D, all in caps. But it's important to know that Jeremiah is not talking about just anyone who happens to be in a position of authority, all of whom could be called Lord. Jeremiah is talking about Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And not only is the one blessed who trusts in Yahweh, but the one whose trust is Yahweh. In other words, all real trust flows from Yahweh. If we are to trust in a human being, it is only if he flows from Yahweh. And if he doesn't, he should not have our trust. Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahweh, whose trust is Yahweh. That word for man there, that strong, healthy male. That is the only way he's blessed, if his trust is Yahweh. My trust, my ability to trust, is held by, created by, empowered by, fed by Yahweh. He not only is trustworthy, but he feeds my trust so that I'm able to trust. Jeremiah says this, the one whose trust is Yahweh, he says, is like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when heat comes, for its leaves will remain green, and is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit. If you've ever had the opportunity to fly over the Sonoran Desert, that's southern Arizona, northern Mexico, if you're flying over it during the summer, particularly, you'll see these little tendrils of green in the depths of summer. It'll be a sea of nothing but brown, because everything's so hot and burnt. But you'll see these little tendrils of green running around. Those are the Palo Verde trees and the ironwood trees that have enormously deep root systems. And they grow on top of aquifers. There are rivers running under the surface. And they grow by the dry riverbeds where there's still water down deep. And I'm reminded of those green tendrils that you see by the prophet Jeremiah. The one whose trust is Yahweh is like a tree planted by water. There's no fear of drought because the roots are fed by that underground river, by that deep water. That's how we trust. Because Yahweh has connected himself to us. He has reached up through those baptismal waters and watered us and filled us with his nourishment. He flows through the very body and blood of Christ into us and strengthens us. We place no trust in human beings, the sons and daughters of Adam, because they're not the source of all things. We're connected to the source. And we know that this source gives us everything we need. The people who first heard these words from the prophet Jeremiah were in exile. And they were pretty meaningful words because they knew they were in exile because they had chosen to trust in human beings instead of God. To follow human beings instead of God. And that trust failed them, as it always will, and they found themselves in a world of hurt, forsaken in a foreign land. We're no different. We too are tempted to trust people, particularly people who tell us what we already want to hear. We overlook their lack of connection to the one true God because, well, we like what we hear. What kinds of things do you want to believe? Because it'll serve you somehow. And because believing the one true God, well, that's going to require sacrifice. That's going to require leaving behind things of this world. And we hear those untrustworthy sayings all around us. We hear things like, oh, I believe that all good people will go to heaven. We hear things like, well, church is important, but it's not the only thing in life. We hear things like, my neighbor can fend for himself. He needs to pull himself up by his bootstraps and stop depending on everyone else to help him. Those don't sound like the words of Yahweh to me. To trust in Yahweh is to alienate ourselves from those words of the world. To be connected to Christ and through Christ is to disconnect ourselves from the wisdom of man. Because we, like Jeremiah's people, are exiles in a foreign land. We find ourselves different from the people around us. And that's good. We're supposed to be. And we find ourselves connected not only to Him, but to one another through Him. That's one of the harder things to explain to a person who's disconnected from the church, is the kind of fellowship we have with one another through Christ. Though we cannot trust those who are disconnected, those who are dry and dead, we can and we do trust each other because of our connection through Christ. Because the same body and blood that flows through you flows through me. That's what makes us dry, instead of dry and dead, makes us green and powerful. That's what makes us like those green Palo Verde trees and ironwoods in the desert. We are one family. We are fed by one source. Who to trust? Trust Yahweh. For He's the one who keeps you connected. He connects you to His grace. And He empowers you to lead others to come to this place, this aquifer in this world, and to receive the same grace that we receive.